You hit $1 million in 15 weeks, $1.5 million in 17 weeks. So, what do you think? How many times will you break this industry record?
The first, as they always say, the first million is, I think, the hardest step.
It's not a report that is boring, it's a podcast of a SaaS playbook that everyone can jam on. And welcome, Alan, to the podcast. And
Thank you.
it's been great, will be great hosting to you throughout, and would love the conversation. I know because we have had a chat before, and every time we speak, I learn something new, whether it's on the Bangalore or whether now online.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Super.
Great. I mean, it's great to be here, and I mean, I've seen some great episodes of yours, and would love to share anything that could help the audience. Yes.
Superb, superb. So yeah. So first things first, right? You hit $1 million in 15 weeks, $1.5 million in 17 weeks, right? So what do you think? How many times will you break this industry record?
I think that's a very interesting way to put it. But so I think the first, as they always say, the first million is, I think, the hardest step,
Yes.
right? I mean, wherein people are still considering whether your product is the right fit for them, whether your product can deliver at scale, whether your product can hold its promise,
Mm,
right? And I think trust deficit is the most important thing, right? When people see that, okay,
mm,
you're there, your product is working, and when other people are actually using your product, I think revenue is nothing but a way of people trusting your product.
mm,
But okay, there are others along with me,
mm,
and I think at that point your product starts taking a J curve,
mm.
right? So that's where it has been. I think we've been adding about 250K a week now in ARR ever since we crossed that. So I think that's the that was the point where people see that, okay, this is working. They then kind of figure out how the solutions can be used for their business.
Hmm. Before we move further and build uh, build this SaaS playbook, just one more thing, right? Uh, when you say you're adding 250K dollar per week, I want you to tell how big the team is, in terms of number of people, as well as the number of countries you are operating in that manner.
Sure. I mean, in terms of team, we are about a 24-member team now,
Mm,
right? And of full-time folks, and basically the team is based in Bangalore, though we have some folks operating remotely.
mm,
We didn't want to have a geographical restriction to talent who's coming to us, right? I think that was very clear
mm,
to us. In terms of countries that we're servicing, we're currently servicing roughly about 40, 45 countries
mm. Okay.
globally. Uh, most of our customers are not from India,
Mm,
and primarily servicing countries where the cost of user acquisition is quite high. All right. So essentially, because that's where cold outreach works very well,
mm.
and that's what we do.
You said cost of user acquisition, that
All right.
is very high.
All right. So mostly in tier one countries where CPC is $10 and above.
Hmm.
These industries, these countries, that's where they are looking at a better alternative,
Hmm.
a better way to acquire customers in a more profitable manner.
Hmm.
All right. And that's where cold outreach kind of comes into the play, and how you can acquire uh, thousands of users for your product at scale without breaking the bank.
So you are saying you have built out multi-million dollar business by cold reach out to the countries where the cost of acquiring customers is pretty high and remaining bootstrap, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I don't know what to say, but it's okay. So
I, I think, yeah. So it was like, it was basically when you're building painkillers versus vitamins,
Mm,
right? So, if you were looking, if you, because we were building our cold outreach tool,
mm,
right? And we had to tell them that, or we had to prove to ourselves that if we are going to reach out to these customers, that's the only way where others also can use a similar product to reach out to customers in those countries,
mm,
right?
mm.
So that's what we kind of demonstrated, I guess.
Okay, I see. That's successfully, I would say. So let's start with first thing first, right? So most of the things that we are hearing right now is SaaS is dead, right? So your views on that, because by seeing you, it doesn't feel so. What we see, like SaaS isn't dead. It's just you're not able to crack SaaS. that that's what I think is.
Yeah, I think uh, SaaS is dead when it is not solving a major pain. I
Hmm,
think that SaaS is dead, right? If you're building a good to have
hmm,
SaaS,
hmm,
uh, ChatGPT can do most of that SaaS for you,
hmm,
right?
hmm.
I saw another company recently which claimed to touch uh, 4 million in 4 weeks or something like that,
Seriously?
right? Yeah, yeah, it's called, which is a app for building other apps, right? It's a SaaS for building other apps, no code SaaS, right? And so these kind of products will allow anybody to just build out SaaS right
Hmm,
there. Distribution is key
hmm,
because the cost of building has gone down. So the only challenge or differentiator that is left is now distribution. How do you distribute your products at scale
hmm,
while remaining profitable? Because while the cost of building products has gone down,
hmm.
that has led to an increase in the cost of advertising.
100%.
If you look at the data from 2010 to 2024, while advertising has become easier, the cost of advertising has maybe shot up by what,
Hmm,
10x now, right? If you look at the data. So people have increased, number of advertisers have increased, cost of advertisement has gone down. So obviously your CAC is higher. If your CAC is higher and then you're trying to sell at a lower cost, SaaS will die,
hmm,
right? So I think that's what we're trying to avoid, which is we're trying to kind of help
hmm.
other SaaS companies acquire customers at scale without having to die,
Okay,
right? So that's what we're trying to solve.
I see. I see. So it's more about going back to the traditional things rather than, right?
Absolutely.
In a sense.
Absolutely. 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 I mean, if it is like, like the beautiful Y Combinator thing of things that don't scale,
Hmm,
right? But what if in today's AI, what if you could do things that do not scale using AI,
hmm,
right? So, like for example, what Reach Inbox does is it helps you, reach out to create hyper-personalized emails
hmm,
for your target audience, right? So, for example, if I'm writing emails to you and to 10 others,
hmm,
right? What Reach Inbox will do is it will write a different email for you. It will write a different email for the next person. It'll write a different email for the next person based on your activity, based on your website, based on everything,
hmm,
right? So this is what Reach Inbox does at scale. So it writes 10,000 different copies of email
hmm,
about your service to your target audience.
hmm,
This way, you don't get into the spam filters. You don't get blocked by any of these, email filters. And then, you reach your target audience. And your target audience also feels good because they know that you put some effort into this.
yes.
They see that this email is relevant for you,
Hmm,
right? And that's the only way to, beat every competition because you're then at least putting yourself out there. You're giving yourself a chance
hmm.
to be in front of the customer, right?
So,
So I think that's the thing that we were looking to solve as well, because even when we started off, we were like, okay, how do you kind of compete in such a market where it's so easy to build
hmm,
and so difficult to distribute?
yes.
And we said, okay, let's solve the distribution part then.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. And since you are coming from the tech background, right? So
Mhm.
just for the audience, you were working as a freelancer in the beginning of your journey, right? And then you
Absolutely.
scaled on to move on building multi-million dollar businesses in creator economy, now in SaaS. So tell me, there was like in LinkedIn we got so many questions that it can make a complete separate podcast, right? That that many questions, but some of them were very, you can say, I think important, and one of them is being, how did you created this SaaS product as a tech and a non-tech guy? how, if someone wants to enter into this SaaS, building out SaaS product, how they will create such kind of products.
Got it. So I think as a I mean, I would, I think, answer this first for the non-tech side
Hmm.
because on the tech side, then building is much easier
Hmm.
for somebody with a tech background. But, I think for the non-tech background, you definitely need to have a trusted uh, tech team or a tech co-founder,
Hmm.
right? You need to have that. You need to have somebody whom you can rely on,
Hmm.
who can maybe take your ideas to reality,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I've met and I've spoken to several uh, entrepreneurs, and one thing that has not worked great is when they outsource development.
Yes.
All right,
Hmm.
I think that's a short way to burn capital much faster and to kind of lose time as well,
Hmm.
right? So you need to be able to convince either a person, a tech guy, to work with your vision,
Hmm.
or you need to be able to hire a tech guy to work with you.
Do you think
One of the two.
SaaS products can be built out via no code platforms?
It depends on what scale of SaaS you want to build, right? If you're looking to build a SaaS that can, maybe drive 10K ARR, 10K MRR, or something like that. I think definitely these are scales that no code can touch. I've not seen product scaling to much higher limits without beyond that. Of course, there are outliers in everything, right? I'm sure there are outliers in scaling, but I'm seeing in general what I've seen is no code platforms usually kind of saturate around the 100 200K ARR mark.
Hmm. Coming back to the things, you said you solved the problem in the distribution, right? So
Mhm.
tell me basically three things that you think you did differently, maybe from the previous time which you have worked on, right? From your learnings, or maybe from the industry that is happening right now, which you think which extremely worked for you.
Yeah, I think so. We What really worked for us was we said no matter what we build, first let us go out and validate whether people really want to buy our product,
Hmm.
right? We started sales within a month or so of actually building the product,
Okay.
right? We put together a very basic version and we went out and said, guys, this is the product. And we put out a lifetime deal initially for people to kind of, support us and see whether this actually worked,
Hmm.
right? And it scaled. And people said, yeah, this looks great, this is what, and that was early validation for us.
Hmm.
Now then we said, okay, and we have not invested a dollar till date in paid ads, by the way. We've never done any paid ads. We've never done anything other than just basic word of mouth from our own users. So we said, oh, guys, if you are supporting, I'm sure you have friends who would also want to find this kind of a product. Would you be interested in putting it out there? We have a affiliate program for you. They brought in more users
Hmm.
and they brought in more users. And that was the way we kind of went on growing, right? Because there was a trust along in that channel where, uh, I know that Himanshu is building something. So I'll say, okay, Himanshu, great. Let me buy this product. Plus, let me tell my friends about it.
Hmm.
And my friends kind of see that, okay, if Alan is vouching for this product, maybe it's really good.
Hmm.
And that kind of built us a support system and, the initial validation for what we were building and also the capital for what we were building, right? Because we were bootstrapping throughout. And that kind of helped us further hire a team and grow from there.
Hmm. Okay, so the first thing I got is that early validation, and the second thing I got is referrals that you think really work,
Abso-
right? And the third thing we'll have
Absolutely.
to put up is agree.
Absolutely. So the third thing that really worked for us is crowdsourcing our entire roadmap, right?
Okay.
So what I had done differently this time is I said that, okay, let me not think of features that I want to build,
Hmm.
right? Let me ask the user base of what they really want us to solve.
Hmm.
And every week these guys would say, okay, Alan, this is what I would really like. This is how we would do it. And that's where users would see that, okay, whatever they're asking is getting built, of course, with prioritization.
Hmm.
You need to also figure out that, we had users who would ask us various things, of course, right? we couldn't solve everything that users asked, but we would definitely prioritize. We used Canny over there, by the way.
mm,
Canny was a great way for us to kind of crowdsource ideas and upload these ideas. So they kind of put together these features, and that's where people said, okay, they're solving very quickly. They're building it out in public. Let us also support them. I think build in public is a great way for driving distribution plus your product in the right direction.
mm. Gotcha. Gotcha. So basically, you converted feedbacks into feed forwards, right? And then worked over it.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
So one thing you told about is validation, that you focus a lot on validating your product at a very early stage. But when we talk about validating a product in a B2B segment, right, it is very difficult to validate and just, how do you get like that, it's validating, now we can scale. That point, we have got 100 people who have said that it works. Now we will focus on scaling, or you say like, we got 10 people. What are the number of people you said now it is validated?
Yeah, so I don't know whether you really need to have a tipping point for that scaling, because scaling is a natural process once you're out there validating, right? So when you, for example, you put it out and then you say that, okay, let's say you're out there for 30 days, you're saying you're giving an offer that's too good to be true,
Hmm,
right? You're saying that, okay, here it is.
hmm,
I'm too early. This is what I'm building. This is my product. Would you like to be a part of it? Would you like to have lifetime access for this, or would you like to pre-book a great discount for
hmm,
this? Right? In spite of this, if you're not seeing traction,
hmm,
that is enough validation that maybe you're not, maybe your direction has to improve, right? Maybe you're not solving a pain large enough,
hmm,
right? But if you put it out there and you're seeing that, okay, for example, for us on day one, we kind of hit, I think, $7,000 of revenue, right? Of putting it out there. And for us, it was like, okay. And then we asked them, these guys who bought, we asked them, "Ki, okay, why did you really buy this? What actually got you to buy this?" Right? Because many a times we don't know why
hmm,
somebody is really seeing the value in us, right? And that was the hooks that I used. Then after that, I said, okay, whenever I spoke to others, I said, okay, this is the pain that we are solving.
hmm,
Instead of going with my own narrative, I went with the narrative that the customer gave us,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
I think that's what really also matters, is looking at your product from the customer's lens, right?
hmm. That's true. That's true. 100%. 100%. Okay. So we talked about, right, the three things that in the terms of distribution, or like in the terms of building up the product that helped you out, right? Now, what do you think when we are like, reaching at a certain scale, there are certain challenges that comes up, right? There can be team scaling, that can be, managing a lot of customers. I know managing a lot of customers, that what region box is for, right? So that's the thing. But still, with the scale, there are a lot of challenges, and how you are currently tackling them, and what do you think the key challenge that you currently think is for you right now?
Absolutely. I think when you're scaling a product, the biggest challenge that comes is customer support. Especially with a lean team, customer support can get really, really tough.
Hmm,
Um, Thankfully, we put in a lot of AI over there to
hmm,
help our team resolve quickly, right? And what we did was we put a separate team to summarize the entire day's queries
hmm,
and build out dashboards for our support team to kind of resolve that very, very quickly,
hmm,
right? So that kind of helped us bring down our resolution times a lot. Second is, of course, the if your product scales too quickly and your team is not able to scale,
hmm,
then there is a challenge,
hmm,
right? Of how do you manage customer expectations versus your current team reality,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
A buy-in from the team is extremely important at that case, in that scenario where
hmm,
the team totally believes in what you're really going after, and how they can really, how all of you can push together the product further,
hmm.
right? And yeah, and of course, building in public helps a lot, because then it also helps your hiring process, where you get a lot of inbound guys who are also interested in something similar to what you're doing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. When you are saying team, right? Team is a major challenge in scaling up the things. You have to scale the teams, right? But I'm also considering the fact that you are bootstrap, right? And if we see right now the startups who have raised funding, we see a lot of churn rate happening around for the higher prices. How do you manage that thing? You know, the startups not moving here and the people not moving here and there from the team and just sticking to one organization and one mission.
Absolutely. I think team is the most important part of your story, right? I think that is very, very critical, and I'm super blessed to have a great team.
Hmm.
The only thing is your team should truly believe in what uh, you're building out. Most often, I see founders
Hmm.
don't share uh, completely or transparently with the team of what they're doing, why they're doing it, what is it that you're really going after,
Hmm.
right? People don't, people actually, in my experience, people don't leave jobs for or move out of jobs for better packages or anything. You cannot attract people with that. You have to attract people with a long-term vision or the mission that you're solving.
Hmm.
And when you get, and especially in the bootstrap scenario, especially in when when you don't have the resources to otherwise attract talent, it is only your vision that can attract the right kind of people for you.
Hmm.
And these are the people. These are the people who will be there with you, stick with you no matter what.
Hmm.
Right. So I think that's where it is.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That seems interesting. That seems interesting. So when you say build in public, right? If you have to
Mhm.
give, suppose I'm starting something, right? And if you are saying like, hey, you should also build in public, right? So what do you think these four things, three things that I should do in order to build in public, or will indicate that I am building in public?
I think so. Building in public is sometimes just being transparent about what you're doing, putting it out there. I mean, I really like I mean, I was quite inspired by Adam from RB2B,
Hmm.
right? Or, when he kind of, the way he built it out in public, he kind of put out the challenges that he's facing, the wins that he's having,
Hmm.
all of that, right? So I think that was a great inspiration for us as well. Okay, okay, this is what we're doing. These are the wins that we're seeing. This is how we are trying to improve. And people will come there. It's build in public is nothing but actually building in public, actually putting out your true self out there, right? So just that, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I see is working. This is what I don't see is working. How did you guys solve this? Because somebody would have solved it somewhere, right? And it's a great time to have this kind of help support system. When I built my first startup back in 2009, we had zero tools like this to build in public, right? I mean, startups were unheard of, support systems were unheard of, right? You would just go with whatever that you thought was right in your mind.
Hmm.
But today, I think that scenario has completely changed. You have a lot of support system that's there, a lot of people who are willing to come out there and truly share what they're doing, right? Like they said, like they say that Silicon Valley is where people are really supportive of other founders. I think that same thing has come to India today, where we see everybody supporting each other to kind of go after their dreams.
Gotcha. So when you are building in public, don't you think about what the competition will see of it, what its impact on?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I mean, I always believe that if somebody is able to execute better, I think they should execute. Right? Ideas are what diamond does, right? I mean anyone can
But
build anything, right?
that sound good as a point of view as an investor that you might invest in their company. But if you think like from a builder perspective, because ultimately they will overtake you, right? Your market and the market share. So that will hamper your business in the real sense. That's a
It's not true. I think my thoughts differ there because let's say you put it out there. Let's say let's take the example of RB2B itself, where he was building. He's completely started the idea itself in public that okay, this is what I'm thinking of building. Right? There have been many products which have come in the identifier space after that. Right? Visitor identifier space. There have been several products which have come, but it's not that anybody has taken over the market share or anything because he's day in day out executing better than the others.
Hmm.
Right? There is most often most ideas that you think of, somebody has already thought of those ideas or somebody is already building that idea. For example, Reach Inbox was not the first product in the cold outreach space.
Hmm.
There were tons of others who were there in the space already or who are still continuing to come in the space,
Yes.
right? It was that, maybe we heard the customers better, maybe we were able to solve, maybe we had the right
mm,
mix of tech, growth, marketing, whatever that was
mm,
needed for this, right?
mm,
So I think we should focus more on how you will solve it, take positive feedback without having to think that, okay, this guy is going to come for my idea, maybe he
mm,
might steal my idea.
mm,
Don't focus on that. No, don't focus on the negative things at all. Focus on the positive things and solve for that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Since earlier you have raised funds, right, in the previous startup, and that too with pretty renowned folks. So, what made you think like this time I'll build out bootstrap rather than building out a funded business?
Absolutely. I think the intent this time was quite different for me. I mean, I started off as a solo founder here and built it out as a solo founder, right? And also wanted to bootstrap this because I wanted to figure out how do we build in the B2B space
Mm,
without having to really, look at available resources.
mm,
How do we get started as quickly as possible,
mm,
right? So that's where we got started. And the industry that we chose, so at VC terms, was actually a red ocean, right, where people are already there, right?
mm,
So I mean, you need to understand whether the market that you're going after is what kind of a market is it? Is
mm,
it is it something that you're passionate and you're really confident of solving, or is it, you're building it for raising capital, right? Most often we see a lot of founders saying, okay, let me build an idea over here,
mm,
right? And do you really need capital to reach your PMF,
mm,
right? Most of times you can solve most ideas without requiring capital,
mm,
right? The previous time when we were building, we knew that we needed capital to reach a certain scale.
mm,
This is not an industry where we could, get monetization from day zero.
mm,
But in what we are building today, we knew that monetization was easier on day zero, and we could build with whatever resources we had, and that's what we kind of did.
mm. I see it. I see it. So, do you think you have reached PMF right now?
Yeah, I think in terms of PMF, I think whenever you're reaching a point where your churn plus new additions is always positive over a prolonged period of time, I think that's where you should consider a good PMF. Right. So thankfully, we've been able to be there for the last uh, 14, 15 weeks at least now, and constantly. So I think that's a good indicator for us as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. We like also seeing a lot like right now the demand of the in terms of SaaS industry I'm talking about, right? So there has been that what I have read, and while talking about a bunch of the friends in VC and founders, that in terms of SaaS now there is not much scale, or you can say growth in SaaS businesses who are building like you know who are not actually in the vertical SaaS kind of a business, which are not having like you basically, if I take your example, right, you have multiple products like a SaaS studio kind of a product, right? So these kind of SaaS studios will emerge more as comparison to a single SaaS products, and will have a much more greater scale in terms of revenue as well as the opportunity that they can tap on. What do you think on this aspect, since you are building in the same?
Yeah, I think the thought is aligned for us as well in terms of building, smaller SaaS products, more vertical focus SaaS products,
Mm,
solve for a particular industry, go deep into that space, and more specialized for that space,
mm,
and then keep on building similar products for that same space where you can continuously upsell.
mm,
I don't think this has been a thought of today. I mean, this has been done for
mm,
a long time by the giants like Freshdesk,
mm,
Zoho. All of these guys have been doing it.
mm,
Of course, it was not called venture studios those days. They had called it SaaS itself because that's how they were doing it, and they kind of pioneered this. And I think now we are looking at more companies following their footsteps.
mm. Because whenever I talk with people, the reason behind this is they say it because if the rationale behind that I have usually came across is like if you launch a SaaS product, there is suppose a $10 billion opportunity in that segment, so it's maybe growing at 10% CAGR. But if you build out a studio that makes bunch of people, products tapping into the same kind of industry, giving a large market share as well as increasing the opportunity that can be there in terms of that, in terms of basically bird eye view of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's also about the customers that you go. What is the time to acquire a customer,
Kind of Google
right? What is your
kind of thing,
sorry?
Google suit kind of a thing, right? Like Google.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what is your sales cycle? What is the time for your sales cycle? Is most important thing in deciding this, right?
Hmm,
If you're selling to large customers, if you're selling to enterprises only, if your product is enterprise only,
hmm,
of course, then your time to reach there is much larger. Of course, your ticket size is also much larger,
hmm,
right? But if you're selling in SME to mid market,
hmm,
which where your acquisition is mostly PLG driven, right? Then you can build multiple products, sell to the same customer, and keep on upselling in that direction. So it's a choice that the founder has to take while he's building out,
hmm,
right? Whether and mostly if your sales cycle is longer, then it's often that you also need to kind of have capital to back that sales cycle, right? Because there is a time for that. You need to do your pilots, you need to kind of be engaged with the customer and all of that stuff, right?
hmm,
Versus this kind of an approach. So I think I see a lot of bootstrapped entrepreneurs going after the venture studio kind of an approach
hmm.
rather than the others.
Gotcha. Gotcha. One more thing over here is, like, I'll like to ask you this, when we are building something right now, whether it's break into VC or anything, right? If I have to say, like, if, what is in my previous startups, what could I have done better? That would be, because the learnings which I am learning right now, that has been, not at that point, like in started out, I usually focused on having bunch of the friends in the team kind of guy thing, right? So right now I think there should be A plus guys and in the team and all of that, and even at a scale and all of product and everything, right? So what do you think? You have built multiple startups, right? What do you think, whether it's successful or fail or operating anything, right? But still there is a scope of improvement in every startup, right? So what do you think at the moment you would have done that thing differently in your previous startups?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know if in terms of choosing the problem to solve, I think that is very, very critical of what are you trying to solve, right?
Mm,
Is this something where you're going to be comfortable dedicating the next 4, 5, 10 years of your life, right? Is this something that you really deeply, I mean, first thing is be true to yourself also, right? I
mm,
mean, do you really care about what you're solving, right? Do you really think that you understand the space well, or are you just building it out,
mm,
right? Because if you're just building it out, most often that entire passion dies out in some time, and then you're just left there,
mm,
right? So for me this time, I think and I've been I just looked back at the thing and I said, okay, what has been one common element in all of these startups was we've had viral growth in all the startups that we built so far.
mm,
And I said, okay, so then if growth was the common aspect, and if that's what we have really solved,
mm,
why don't we really solve this for our customers? Because that appears to be the thing that we've been passionate about always,
mm,
right? So then that's where I think this time I took some time back and said, okay, let me really think about what I want to solve for,
mm.
right? And I think that was what was different. And the second thing I think was being very, very clear, transparent, and absolutely honest to your team about what is uh, what is it that you're really building for, right? What is your motivation, and aligning the motivation of everyone with what your motivation is. I think that was very critical for us.
Can we also add to this, like you said, viral growth is the thing which you cracked, right, in all previous startup. So it's more of an intersection of a Venn diagram where that is what I want to solve plus what I have cracked or what I know, kind of like that intersection, right?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And since you also says like you have been in multiple journeys scaling $0 to $5 million ARR, right? So doing it once seems like there can be a game of luck, game of chance, right? It's once or twice you might have done like game of luck, game of chance, right? But when you do it multiple times, it's usually said at like when you do one thing it's luck, when you do it twice it's maybe a chance, but when you do multiple time it's habit. So tell me bunch of the things, like suppose if I have to start a SaaS company, what are the things that will help me to go to $1 million in revenue? And we have already talked about considering team, referral and validation, right? This is obviously like there, but the things is, hey, like, hey, whenever you're launching SaaS product, do these three things absolutely, so that you will reach or hit your $1 million mark, which we said is the most difficult thing to achieve initially.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think let me take a step back there. So one thing was that my first product, which I built while I was in college, failed miserably, right? So for me, I think that was a major stepping stone because, and that was the best thing that happened to me in life
Hmm.
because, that product I saw that I was the complete tech driven entrepreneur. Then I said, I want to have the best tech. I want to build the best product.
Perfect.
This is what I'm solving. This is what I know that I can solve. I can write beautiful code, all of that stuff, right? And I was so focused on product. I never really thought who's going to really want this product, right? And 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 only when you fail, you kind of look back saying, why did it not work, right? When you succeed, you don't have the chance to kind of really look back of saying, why did it work,
Hmm.
right? So I think for me, that was the thing where I said, okay, maybe I should really think of distribution before really thinking of what am I going to build.
Hmm.
That's what changed after that.
Hmm.
So every next product that I thought of, I was like, okay, if I'm going to build this, how will I get my customers? What is my distribution going to be like?
Hmm.
Will I really be able to distribute, or am I going to just build and sit with this product again?
Hmm.
I think that's the most important thing. Write it out that okay, I'm going to get my first 100 customers doing this is my channel, email, cold outreach. If I'm doing cold outreach, do I know how to do cold outreach? Do I know how to do do I know how to run ads effectively? Do I know how to go out in communities? Do I have anchors who can help me go there,
Hmm.
right? So I think this is the most critical thing, right? Figure out distribution even before thinking of what is it that how you're going to start building. That's the thing that changed for me after my first startup.
Okay. So if I have to launch a SaaS company today or tomorrow, I'll think about how to get the distribution right.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is my idea. This is what I'm thinking of building.
Hmm.
And if this is the idea that I'm trying to solve,
Hmm.
this is how I'm going to get my first 100 guys.
Hmm.
That's all, that first thing.
Hmm.
Because after that, you can build your viral loops and you can build your customer feedback, public, all of that is okay.
Hmm.
But if you're thinking that, okay, first let me build the product and then figure out,
Hmm.
you've already lost a lot of time.
That's true. I would say that the same mistake we did at Startup, we wasted a lot of time in just adding dark mode to it. Just giving an example. So, just focusing on the feature and perfection, even on the same with the website. So, at
Yeah,
that time, if you would have seen our website, it would have been equivalent to Apple's. Like, the animations that it has, spend a lot of time working over that and everything like that. Interesting.
yeah. I think that's also the mindset that you have to drive into the team because it's very difficult. So you have learned it the hard way, not the team. No, so putting that same thought into the team, saying, guys, it's okay. You have some pixels which are not there, which are not aligned, but you don't have a million visitors hitting your website on day zero either,
Yes.
right? What are you solving for? Whom are you making it perfect for, right?
Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. And also, I see on your website there is a calendar, right? But most of the founders do not have that. The reason behind this is, I'm talking like many founders do also, but the reason behind this is the founders think that, hey, he should mail me up or he should put a query or request and then I'll just catch him up and all of that stuff, right? But you bluntly put out your calendar on the site so that people can directly get in touch, right? So, what do you think about that aspects of connecting with the end customers in terms of whether it's for sales or whether, as you said, is for customer support?
Yeah. I think in it depends really on the geography that you're selling to,
Hmm.
and I think most people are so it was a social experiment, honestly, right? We just put it out. We said, okay, let us allow people to book calls with us and directly, let us talk to them. And that led to two things. One is for the earliest guys, it led to people whoever actually had questions or anything queries. People actually went there and they said, okay, if I can look at this guy, talk to this guy, I can trust this person, right? So the trust deficit was quite largely solved because you were putting yourself out there, right? And the second thing is, I think people are very respectful of each other's time at the moment, right? Of course, we have had outliers as well where people would also book random calls, but there's very few cases. Most people who booked actually genuinely had queries. People actually were respectful of the time and they wanted to either share feedback or partner up or whatever. So it also opened up a lot of doors for partnerships for us.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you said top geographies, right? So if you would have
Mm.
to tell me which top geographies, if I have to build a product for that, and if I have to sell a product for that, so both like in terms of building maybe regulatory sites kind of things, and selling a product maybe terms of customer aspects. So what will be the top three geographies that I should choose?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. What do you
So
mean? What is the difference between building and selling?
So building, I'm talking about like maybe building. I'm staying in sense of hiring a team, maybe having a forming a company formed, getting a company formed over there, right? And selling, I'm talking in terms of where the customer diaspora is there.
Absolutely. I think, and I might have my own personal bias here, but I don't see a better place to build than in India right now. I think the kind of talent, the kind of passion, the intent to break out,
Mm,
right? That I've not seen anywhere globally, right? The cost to start is low. The talent pool is very good,
mm,
extremely good, in fact.
mm,
And most important, the intent, the ambition is through the roof,
mm,
right? So this combination is what you need when you're building, right?
mm.
You need a team who has ambition as high as yours,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's where I love India for this. Um, in selling, it really depends what you're building, where you see you need to understand where your target audience is. For example, when we were building Reach in Box, we knew that if we are building something for cold outreach, you cannot go to a market which has a CPC of zero point 0.1,
Mm,
right? Because if it's CPC of zero point 0.1, nobody needs to do cold outreach. You can get customers by pull, right?
mm,
But if your CPC itself is starting from $5 or $7,
mm.
then even if you have a 10% amazing conversion rate, you're still spending $70 to acquire a customer,
Yeah.
right? At that point, if you're doing cold outreach, you can acquire the same customer in maybe $5,
Mm,
right? So, I mean, at worst case, right? So, I mean, this is what we were kind of trying to understand. Okay, who is our target audience? So, for every SaaS product, your audience might be very different,
mm,
right? So I think that's something that it will depend on case to case, where based on your idea what you're really solving for.
mm.
But if you need to really look what is your audience, where is your paying audience.
Gotcha. And this is also one of your journey in that matter from raising funds to building a fund, right? So you're building Outbox VC, investing in startups as well, right? So tell me
Absolutely.
the thing behind, what your rationale behind it is in terms of investing. And you said like you're like micro building for micro SaaS something, right? So in terms of
Yes.
that as well, so tell me a bit more about the building of VC kind of things aspect.
Absolutely. So as a venture studio, like I said, we saw a lot of people who have built some amazing products, or were not able to distribute, or who had great ideas, were not able to build and distribute, right?
Hmm.
Or wherever they needed backing, right? I mean, there are great operators, but are facing some support issues, right? So we said, if this is the thing, why don't we've been operators throughout. We've seen how to kind of build and scale.
Hmm.
Why don't we kind of join you in the journey and kind of try to scale together,
Hmm.
right? So that's what we're doing at Outbox, trying to kind of invest into similar companies, or acquire similar companies in the space, and try to try to have faster growth for these companies.
Got,
That's what we're doing.
gotcha. Interesting, interesting. And one more thing, just before we move on to the people questions they have posted. So the thing is, you highlighted on the pricing page, right? There are certain prices that are even lower than the Google Workspace for certain products, right? So how do you decide that the right pricing for your customer? Assume that you get it over a period of time with the iterations, but when you initially reached out, hey, this is our price. How did you get that price?
Absolutely. So I always believe pricing cannot be low or cannot be high. Pricing is a function of value,
Hmm.
right? What is it? What is the value that you can attribute to your product?
Hmm.
Can you attribute do you think is it solving a large enough pain point for your customer that, okay, he's willing to say that, okay, take my money here and please solve this for me,
Hmm.
right? Uh, for example, if your website is getting DDoSed
Hmm.
and Cloudflare says that, listen here, this is where it is. If you want me to put a DDoS protection, this is the cost.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to think twice before paying that money, because that's where the entire value comes for you.
Yes.
So I think it's very critical of understanding what is that value that you're solving,
Hmm.
what is the value that you're providing, and is it a point? Is it a price point at which the user does not have to think at all?
Hmm.
Does it, so this, it is an intersection of this where, the value, and he does not have to, it shouldn't pain or pinch him that, okay, this value is coming at a very high cost,
Hmm.
right? So that's where it is. I think that intersection, understanding that intersection is very, very critical
Hmm.
in the SaaS journey.
But suppose like you have to launch Reach and Box tomorrow and you haven't
Mhm.
launched it till now. What will you price it? I know now you know the pricing, right? But suppose you don't know. So what will you price it?
So even when we started, okay, so let me tell you the same thing,
Yeah.
right? When we started, if you look at Reach Box, the prices have not changed on the website ever since we started, by the way, right? So we were like, what do we price it at? Do we say that is 99 the right price point? Is 49 the right price point?
Hmm.
Right? Of course, we did a lot of competition research, okay, of what they're
Hmm.
looking, what they're pricing their products at, okay, what are they doing, what is the average pricing looking at? And
Hmm.
then I said, okay, this seems to be the price point at which our value will far exceed others, plus will be better compared to what is already there in the market,
Hmm.
right? And that was the price point that we put it out, and that's what kind of worked really well, right? So I think that's the way that we solved it. But
That
I think everybody can have a different approach to it. But yeah, this is how we solved it.
Gotcha. Because what happens usually is, if I'm talking geography wise in India, that there's a price war kind of things that operates in right after a certain
Yeah,
and people see it like there is an industry which is charging 1 lakh, so I'll charge 10,000. That's not how the things work. And that the mistake I
yeah,
even did in the started up thing, we started forming pitch deck at a very low price, and that absolutely 110% hampered the quality of the things. So that was the thing. So, bifurcation of the segment of the market and choosing where you get into the right position and then comparing themselves is the most crucial fact, right?
absolutely. I mean, you if you're trying to price a product because somebody is pricing it at 49, let me go and price it at $9.
Hmm.
If that's how you're going to look at it,
Hmm.
one is it will be unsustainable. Second is even the even the buyer is like, why is this guy providing at 9?
Hmm.
What is it that I don't know, right? How can he provide it at 9? Maybe he cannot provide it at 9 because customers today are not only looking for a cheaper solution. As I said, they are looking for value. Value and cheaper are way different, right? They are looking at whether this product can actually sustain, whether this product can actually solve my thing, or whether I have to actually go out and look for another product 2 months down the line, right? So I think that's a shift that we actually need to consider. The other consideration I think that we might want to also look at is how SaaS is shifting from a annual recurring revenue model to a outcome-based model. I think that's something very, very beautiful that's happening in the industry right now. Wherein even if you look at the industry leader like Intercom, they've gone from saying that, okay, this is my model. I don't know if you noticed it, but this was my pricing model per month earlier. Now I'm coming up with FinAI resolution, and I'm going to charge you for every successful resolution. I know my product will work, and if I resolve your query, I'm going to charge you $1 for resolution. I think that's a very remarkable step in the entire SaaS world today, where people are willing to bet on their own outcomes, right? So I think this shift is something that we're going to see over the next few months and time to come, of how AI is going to drive outcome-based pricing.
That's true. That's true. That's even better for both the business as well as the customer.
Absolutely,
Even
absolutely,
even for the business, it might take a bit longer initially to find out the right PMF for the iterations to get the right customers and to get them the right value that they're looking for to match the expectation. But in a longer horizon, it will add a, like super.
absolutely, absolutely.
Then moving on to like some questions that we got right. So one of a guy who is also a bootstrap founder, right? He's doing $1 million ARR. So he asked like, if you would have got $100 million for this venture, how much your revenue would be right now?
I think that's a very uh, difficult question to answer because with 100 million, your with the capital in the bank, your entire focus might change very differently. What are you building? What the audience that you're building for? Like I said earlier, your market itself changes, right?
Yes.
For example, there are players in our space
Hmm.
who are only building for the enterprise,
Hmm.
who are at 100 million ARR,
Hmm.
right? Completely venture backed, and like a friend said, where they've raised capital throughout,
Yes.
right? So it that could have possibly been an outcome where you're having the ability to build only for enterprises and going after the enterprise space only, right? Seed-based pricing and all of that stuff, right? But without that, I think today, without capital, this is where we've kind of reached. With capital, maybe it would have been a very different outcome of reaching to larger enterprises and going in that direction.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. So one of the things is like, yeah, I absolutely agree to that. The another question is like, it is more of kind of expectations versus reality thing. So, in terms of both, when you started, what was your expectation, what the reality turned out to be, and even the same with the team and the customers, right? The team has certain expectations. The reality might be turning out in the same or not. Even with the customers, when they buy our product, they have a certain expectation that I'll get XYZ value, and to give them the reality, how to match these things. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think like I said earlier, the customers will dictate a lot of your reality, because they will drive your product vision. So when we started off,
Hmm.
the idea for us was, how do we create a AI SDR kind of a product, right? Wherein you can enter your ideal customer, that, okay, hey, I'm looking for this kind of customers. How do I acquire them? And automatically AI does it all for you, right? This was the
Okay.
thing that we kind of wanted to solve,
Hmm.
right? And then when we tried to build the version one, customer said, okay, that's great, but I think this is a larger problem,
Yeah.
right? So I think expectations is, you can dream of something truly uh, uh, different when you're building out.
Hmm.
But if you're building it out as a bootstrapped venture, and if you're building for through customer funding rather, right? The difference is, your vision is then dictated by what your customers are willing to pay for today,
Hmm.
right? And then your other vision takes a backseat, and you slowly build it over time,
Hmm.
right? Because that's the only difference that I would say in the disadvantages of maybe bootstrapping in absolute terms.
That's true. That's true. Then one more thing was we covered that how validation happens in B2B, that to scale. So you talked about build in. There was one question: how did you scale without any media coverage and all of that part? Then there was one thing like, how much money do you need to start a SaaS company?
Yeah, I think you would need at least a $10,000 to, have with you before you kind of get started with any idea. I mean, I always recommend having this kind of a capital at least, because then, where people say, okay, no, no, you don't need anything to start, you don't need anything, that I feel is wrong in a lot of ways, because that will prevent you from really doing things and, reaching your uh, ideal customer sooner, right? Uh, you need to be able to figure out how do I acquire at least a $10,000 of capital,
Yeah.
so that you're able to not waste time in trying to do things that don't need your time. You have to value your time very heavily. Uh, Double down on your strengths, which is not your strength. Please allow capital to buy that service from somebody else, right? So I think that's another learning that we had over the years is don't try to do everything yourself, right? Value your time. I think that's something most important. Of is this whatever task that you're doing, is it really worth the time, or could you really um, get more value out of that in something else that you're better off?
That's true. That's 100% true. That's 100% true. So yeah, man. This was all for these questions, and it was
Amazing.
again lovely hosting to you. Have a chat around SaaS. For me, it's like a SaaS playbook. Have everything jotted right.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome.
Validated, referral, building Venn diagrams, and everything, right? So for audience, it might must be a kind of a you know, it's not a report that is boring. It's a podcast of a SaaS playbook that everyone can jam on. And thank you for doing this.
Th- Thank you for having me over. I think it was great chatting with you as well, and for the opportunity to share our learnings. I think would love to connect with any in any way where I can be of help, and where we can share our experiences.
For sure, man. Thank you.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great much. Thanks. Bye bye.